faith stories,
My now wife Chelsea was like, "Hey, you're coming to church with me on Sunday," and I was like, "All right, I've been looking at the Bible. Let's do this."
fishing memories,
When I first started, I was just fish, focus on the fish. And I see the kid catch a fish, I'm like, good job, perfect, awesome. And then he goes up there and I'm like, we're catching slot snook. And this kid's up here going, oh, the breeze. I'm like, this is exactly what it's about.
meaningful conversations,
You have to stay in the Word. You have to have a good support system. You have to know what the end goal is. You have to know who God is.
positivity. This is the Faith and Fishing Podcast. Your hosts, Cam Steele.
If your identity is you're an angler, whenever you're not doing well in the water, that's whenever you can't be content.
And Robert Rand. Faith stories,
My now wife Chelsea was like, "Hey, you're coming to church with me on Sunday," and I was like, "All right, I've been looking at the Bible. Let's do this."
fishing memories,
When I first started, I was just fish, focus on the fish. And I see the kid catch a fish, I'm like, good job, perfect, awesome. And then he goes up there and I'm like, we're catching slot snook. And this kid's up here going, oh, the breeze. I'm like, this is exactly what it's about.
meaningful conversations,
You have to stay in the Word. You have to have a good support system. You have to know what the end goal is. You have to know who God is.
positivity. This is the Faith and Fishing Podcast. Your hosts, Cam Steele.
If your identity is you're an angler, whenever you're not doing well in the water, that's whenever you can't be content.
And Robert Randolph.
And his timing is perfect. We might not always agree with it, and we might not always understand it at the moment.
Bring you interviews with some amazing guests from the fishing community and discuss all things to do with fishing and their faith. Welcome to the family.
Hey, y'all. Welcome back to the Faith and Fishing Podcast. I'm Cam.
Hey, and I'm Robert.
And that was the very last time that you will hear us say that. So let's just go ahead and get it right out of the way. This is the very last episode of the Faith and Fishing Podcast. But before we dive too much into that, Robert, how's it going, man?
Not too bad. Just kind of the same old what we have been saying for the last little bit. Busy at work. Busy with a little bit of basketball this winter, and not a whole lot of fishing. A little bit of duck hunting, so that's been good. Watching a whole lot of kayak offshore stuff, trying to get myself mentally prepared for March so we can get out of this 15-degree weather that we're having the next couple of days. It's going to be super cold here, so that's about it. What about you?
So since the last time that you and I talked on the podcast, this is how long it's been. Henry has caught his first bass. Henry and my dad and I went and got on some stocked brook trout. So the reason I said it like that was I'm pretty sure that Henry caught his first bass back in like September or October. It has been a while. And sorry that you were not able to get more episodes during that time, but sometimes life comes at you hard. And between work stuff and family stuff and medical stuff, we were just not able to put out content during that time. And I mean, even just getting this episode together was quite an ordeal. Like, just it's like
to get us both on the same night when we're available with nothing going wrong with either of our jobs, and it's been crazy, but we'll get into that more.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of, I am on call, and I am and I've got a cough because whenever you spend a day cutting ceiling tiles with a dull razor blade, you end up with a lot of dust and with a little bit of a dry cough. So you'll hear me mute myself quite a bit, and you'll hear me rattling my cough drop around in my mouth a lot. So sorry about that, but yeah. So let's go ahead. First, I should say, first of all, thank you for listening, and thank you for the run that we had. And Robert, thank you for coming in and helping whenever you did. And you probably kept the podcast going for at least 2 years longer than it would have otherwise. But yeah, let's kind of give an explanation. So I emailed sponsors a couple weeks ago and let them know this was coming, and let them know what was going on. But let's kind of give an overview of why this happened. So, Robert, I am desperate to cough, so I'm going to let you go first.
Yeah, that's no problem. So, yeah, I'll start out, and kind of like you just said, a few years back, I think you were, the podcast needed a shot in the arm, and that was a good timing for me to come in and get us down the road a little bit further. And thank you for, asking me to do that. I've had so much fun, and selfishly, I get so much out of the podcast and talking to people, and it's helped me grow in my faith journey, probably more than anybody, more than any of the guests that we've had. But just hearing everybody's faith story and sharing things about our faith story, I really am appreciative of you asking, and have had a great time, and am torn for us to be making the decision, that we've been tossing the idea around for quite a while, and sometimes life just changes, and I'll let Cam go over his stuff. But when I first started this, Cam asked me, I was probably still self-employed with my lawn care and landscaping business. I still do that business on the side, but I have a real job. But I had done that for 12 years and made my own hours, and was pretty flexible. COVID hit, and I lost a lot of employees for COVID. A lot of them stayed home and didn't come to work, and decided that they had other means of revenue during that time. So I still did that by myself for a couple years, and then started doing the podcast, and a job just fell in my lap that I couldn't turn down. And even at the beginning of, and that's the same job that I have now, but at the beginning of it, I was doing one thing, and it was a privately owned company. And since then, unfortunately, the owner that hired me had passed away, and we got bought by a large corporation with thousands and thousands of employees. And so my job role changed for the better, actually. I really enjoy what I'm doing, but it's a lot more hours. And along with that, I mean, it was a sizable pay increase as well. So, I kind of liked what I was doing, and I was still making my own hours even at that job. But with the new role, the flexibility kind of went away, and then more responsibility on top of that. And there are times I have to go in and do things, and there are a lot of days I have to stay later than I want to, just because of this transition. At some point, it will settle back down and get back closer to the hours that I had before, but it still won't be quite the same. So that's my main reason, is just the timing, the new job, and not having a whole lot of extra time to do anything. And I still do my lawn care and landscaping business on the side. So Monday through Friday, it's the regular job, and then Saturday and Sunday, I'm cutting grass, and then I'm fishing in between that, and then all within that, we've been fortunate enough to have a house at the beach, so I'm having to make some trips down there, which is super nice, but it does take up another chunk of time that I didn't have before, and we're trying to coordinate our schedules where we can get down there as much as possible, and hopefully in the near, maybe not so near future, move there permanently, and so that's a lot of things to balance, and like I said, thank you so much for asking me to be a part of it. I will truly miss doing these and hearing everybody's face stories. And then on the flip side of it, to kind of shed a little light on it that people don't know, because you've heard Cam and myself talk about this before, that we're podcast junkies and we love to listen to podcasts. Podcasts are a whole lot of work, and it's, thanks to Cam for putting in probably double the time, maybe triple the time that I put in on doing this. I just show up on the designated time and roll with it, but he's doing the sponsors and putting all the, the intros and outros together and coming up with a lot of the content for it. So he's even putting more time into it than me, but even just cutting time out, carving time out, and doing that every week. And normally we're staying up a couple extra hours when most nights we would already probably be in bed, or at least myself, because I'm a lot older than Cam is. But but that's kind of how it goes. And we had talked about it before too, and some of the Faith and Fishing podcast has kind of ran its course for us, and those episodes will always be there, so we can go back and replay those. And I had done a couple other side things while we were doing this, and sometime in the future, you may see me, or I'll just speak for myself. You may see me doing something else podcast wise, but I've been trying to figure out what the next move is, and how I can still put content out and fit it into my schedule, and then the weekly designated time deal just didn't work out like it did before. So that was my short, not so short answer there.
Yeah, for sure. Mine will be a little more long-winded, as long as my my lungs can handle it. So for me, like you said, whenever I first started this podcast, I was doing so much editing and work and getting things scheduled and everything. I was putting in 2-3 hours editing each show. Like I would go through, and I was recording a phone call, and so I was going through and I had to equalize the volumes. Sometimes I do it, and there was at least one time that I had a guest that always does it, where they whistle on their S's. I remember going through and I had to go in. I tried to do it on the whole thing and found out that you can't do a notch filter for a certain frequency on the whole podcast, because all of your hard consonants go away. And someone who is hard of hearing like me would just sound like somebody mumbling the whole time. So I found one of the words that he whistled on, highlighted it, did a spectral analysis on that, found the frequency that had the real high peak on it, and notched that frequency on each word that had a whistle on it. So like stuff like that, that I was going through. I was editing out background noise and all of this crazy stuff. And whenever I finally started going through StreamYard, putting the videos up, I was like, well, I'm just not going to edit the audio anymore, unless it's like something absolutely outrageous that like there's a long pause or something, because at the time that I moved on to StreamYard, you couldn't just pause it and then come back to it. But so I was doing all of that, and I got really burned out that way. And that's whenever I brought you on. But so there was a few reasons that that I decided to call it, and the first reason was because of um, the time that I need to be able to spend with my family. So Henry is almost 4. Theo is coming up on 8 months, and he is teething, and his good nights of sleep are not quite what Henry's like sleep regression nights looked like in terms of the amount of sleep that he gets. We got so spoiled with Henry on sleep. So like having the opportunity to come on here for an hour or two at night once a week is just not feasible for me right now. And then so another thing for me, so the question becomes, so why not just pause it and come back to it later? So there's a few things. One, whenever I first started this podcast, there was nothing else like it. You could not find a podcast like this anywhere, and that's why I made it. Well, now I can think of probably 5 or 6, maybe 7 podcasts that fill this void in the fishing podcast realm. Like whether it's if you specifically want faith stories, I mean, you've got like Filled Quiver, you've got Christian Outdoors podcast. Now, yes, they throw some hunting stuff in there too. You've got what is his name? Um, I think it's Chris Wells, the Bass BASS chaplain. I can't remember what his podcast is called, but he's got a podcast where he interviews all the pros, gets their face stories. That was one of the reasons that I kind of moved away from like pro bass anglers, because it's like there's already a podcast now that is specifically geared to them. And then like if you want like life stories, there's a ton of those of like getting the life stories of anglers. One of my favorites recently has been the Whole Angler podcast with Wolf of Walmart on the Catch Podcast Network. Um, so like now it's like I can step away and not leave a hole in the community. So that played a big role in it as well. Like I didn't feel guilty leaving the podcast. And then like I didn't need it anymore, if that makes sense. Like, so the fishing community doesn't need it anymore, and I don't need it anymore. And that made a big difference, because like this was like defining for me. Like this formed my identity for the past 4.5 years. And in some aspect, that's awesome. And in some aspect, it's like there are so many things in your life that are so much more important than this podcast, that those things need your attention way more. So I don't know that I'm completely done with podcasting forever, but for those reasons, I feel Faith in Fishing has run its course. And I want to say thank you to the listeners for all the support you've given me over the years. It's not going to just disappear. So, I mean, all of those episodes, all of those faith stories are still being shared. There's 4.5 years of content there that will be there forever. People can go back and listen. Like my kids will be able to go back and listen and hear what their dad had to say about certain things, or hear like their dad interview somebody like Jimmy Houston, or hear their dad and Robert like go back and forth about whether Chick-fil-A is a good fast food restaurant. So I mean, there's plenty of content there that it's still there. And like I feel, Robert, you and I have a lot to be proud of in this podcast. And mainly I think the main thing was getting those stories out there. And I mean, to at least in some aspect kind of getting the ball rolling for and clearing a path for others to be able to get a platform out there too. So like now having like the Bass Chaplain be able to put a podcast together and get like you can go and hear the faith stories of all the pros. To have others out there that are like putting those podcasts out there, like we were a part of that, and we were a part of getting that started, and that's always going to be something special as well. So, am I going to miss it? Absolutely. I am going to miss. I'm going to miss the camaraderie. I'm going to miss, obviously you and I will still be friends, but I mean, I'm going to miss having that weekly get together. I'm going to miss, getting to meet all the different new people. But, I'm going to miss like building those new relationships over and over and over again. That's been probably the most rewarding, like overarching thing for me for this podcast has been the relationships that I've been able to build. Like some of my closest friends, right now, I would not be friends with them if it wasn't for this podcast. So, that's really special to me. And then like I had a brief moment where I felt like I was important in the fishing industry, and like that brief moment was, I remember it like it was yesterday. It was the second time that I was interviewing Andrew Hayes, and we had the Tackle Talk podcast. We had closed it out. He and I were talking after the fact, and I'm sitting here and I'm talking to Andrew Hayes, and I get a text message from Randy Howell. And I was like, I'm part of this. I'm part of the fishing community. So there have been so many of those special moments, and I've been able to just be able to share so much with so many. Being able to give Russell Dillon's parents a conversation, like an unedited conversation of like their, at the time, 12-year-old kid, having a conversation, just talking about what he loves, after he passed away at 14. Like I can't imagine like what that would mean to me if I were able to get a gift like that. So that kind of thing, just been able to be a part of some really big things, even if on paper they look really small. Been able to be a part of really big things through this, and it has been a heck of a ride.
And it's just, there's so many things, and you just touched on a few of them, and it's bittersweet. I like and love looking back on the last 4 years, even before I was a part of it, and then the last 2.5 or 3 years, however long it's been since I've been helping you out with it. And it's been it's just been a fun ride, and like I said, I've gotten way more out of it faith-wise and my journey than the people that we've interviewed. So I'll be forever thankful for that. And the same thing is thanks for all the listeners and the people that are reaching out. And we'll just see where life goes from here. And what you said about you realizing that there's so many more important things that sometimes need our time. That's very well said. So agree 100%.
Absolutely. And there are some things that I'm not going to touch on, that that there were some things in the podcast that caused a lot more stress than I've been willing to admit to myself. And I am excited to get those things out of the way. But I did want to instead of doing like sponsor ads, I want to individually thank all of the sponsors. And first off, Savior Outdoors was the very first company that that said yes whenever I reached out about being on a pro staff or anything like that. That isn't somebody that takes everybody, if that makes sense. I had been on another one that was someone who takes everything. You and I were both on there. They take everybody, and they made some choices that I was like, I don't like this, and I don't want to be a part of this. So whenever I got accepted by Savior Outdoors, it was like, wow, this is somebody that thinks I can actually help them. And Corey has been absolutely fantastic to me. We've helped each other a lot, and he has been absolutely fantastic to this show. He has very much helped out a lot with giveaways and stuff like that. So, and he's been great with, like, if I have questions about the product or anything like that. And I mean, there have been times where like I reached out to him and I was like, man, the device didn't go off, and I feel guilty because I was the guy who talked him into getting it. And he paid to have a diver go out and try to find it out on Sharon Harris Lake. We had one of our local kayak guys with he had 360 and live scope, and they were both, and he was out there like trying to point the diver in the right direction, and they just couldn't find it. But like the fact that he's willing to do that says a lot about him. And that promo code should still be active, regardless of what everybody else decides to do, because I will continue to be a part of the Savior Outdoors Pro staff. So FNFP 15, save you 15% off at savouroutdoors.com. That's SAVUR outdoors.com. So Jade's Jigs, they were the first company to reach out to me about anything. So I think I might have just placed an order with them one day, or I can't remember exactly how it went. I think I might have like placed a small order, and they sent me a whole bunch of extra stuff and said, "Here, try this." And then I got Joey on the podcast, and he was like, "Man, I want to partner with you and see what we can do." And Jade's Jigs has been absolutely fantastic. Corey and Joey are both people that I call friend. Joey is an absolute example of the relationships that I've been able to build through this, and to see his inventory grow, his quality like improve, and his business grow and evolve has been really special. So head on over to jadesjigs.com and oh man, is it FNF10? I think it's FNF10. And I don't know how long that'll be active, but give it a shot. If nothing else, it'll let them know that that it's still making a difference, and that he's still making a difference out there. So head on over and show him some love. So Get Outdoors Pedal and Paddle has been absolutely fantastic. Will is an outstanding guy. And he's done a lot for the show and for me as a paddler. The amount of time that I have spent on the phone with him, like chewing his ear off about whether I should go with this paddle or that paddle, or whether like stepping into this kayak would be a lateral move, or if it would be an upgrade, or all the different advice that he's given me. Just a wealth of knowledge. Great guy, great company here in Greensboro, North Carolina. Stop by the shop and let them know that they're doing an awesome job. Omnia Fishing is one of the it's probably the biggest company that we worked with, and we weren't able to make like the relationships in the same way with them as everybody else, but they still really stepped up in a big way in a lot of different scenarios. So one, with giveaways, they helped out a lot, and two, whenever Russell Dillon passed away, they were the ones that was able to get the Dillon family in touch with the rep from Zebco to be able to get deals on. They were doing a memorial fundraiser to be able to give fishing rods to every single kid in Russell Dillon school, and Omnia was able to put them in touch with the rep from Zebco to be able to get that done. So like stuff like that, even though like I don't have anybody there at Omnia that it's like I'm talking to outside of like the podcast work or anything like that. Like they still are phenomenal people, and just absolute, just salt of the earth. Great company. And you can use code FNF 15 if it's your first time there to get 15% off, or FNF 10 every time after that, as long as that promo code stays alive. I don't know if it will or not, but we will see, won't we? And then Mr. B Lure Company, Brent there, is, the guys from Looking for Fish said it best on one of my live streams one time. I was on Lake Crabtree fishing, and I was just running a live stream on Instagram, and they come up and they asked, "What are you throwing?" I said, "Well, I'm throwing this crankbait and the bladed jig from Mr. B," and they said, "Mr. B is quality out the wazoo," and I was like, "You are absolutely correct." And that was even before like I started working with Mr. B. Like I threw his stuff long before that. We built a relationship, he and I, before I even asked him, "Hey, would you be interested in doing this?" And he's been awesome every time. Like every time I order something from him, it gets here quick, and it gets here with a bunch of extra stuff. Like, but use code Faith and Fishing Pod for I think it's 15% off your first order. And he's a one-man show down in South Carolina now, and but his colors are awesome. If you need to match a specific bait fish with your colors on your swim jig, or if you need to match a particular like color pattern of crayfish that is it's only in your pond, like he's got it. Like he's your guy. So, and that's at MrBLureCompany.com. Omnia Fishing is OmniaFishing.com. And then Naqua was the last company that we started working with, and kind of the same as Mr. B and pretty much all of these guys. These were companies that we, or I guess I should say, I used beforehand. I think Omnia was the only one that we both were like kind of active with before jumping in. But with Naqua, I just emailed the contact number on the website one day to say, "Hey, I just wanted to give credit where credit is due. Jay Jackson was the reason for this sale, but I wanted to purchase it through one of my sponsors. So, because I bought it at Get Outdoors. But I just wanted to give credit where credit was due." And she was like, "Oh, we love Jay. He's such an awesome guy." And then was like, "If there's anything else we can do," like, and went just bent over backwards trying to make sure that I was well taken care of if there was anything else that I needed with my build. So that's kind of why we work with those companies. I'm going to I'm still going to be, a customer of all 6 of these companies. Love each and every one of them, and I'm super thankful that we were able to have them on board.
Yes, very well said. And a very good description of all of the above. So I don't even know. Where do you want to go from here?
Well, was there anything that you wanted to say, get off your chest, or say to anybody?
No, really, just a thank you to you for inviting me to do this. It's been super fun, super rewarding for me. So thank you to you, and thank you to all the people that listen. And that's it.
Well, like I always say, whether this is your first time listening or you've listened to every single episode, we are so glad that you're listening, and we are so excited that you tuned in. Sorry that you tuned in on the last one, but hey, there's still 4.5 years of content to go back and listen to. So go back and listen to them. Yeah, I think I've said pretty much everything that was kind of on me to say. Maybe there'll be a like Burning Bridges podcast at some point where I'm like, this is all the dark side of the podcasting, like the Faith and Fishing podcast and everything. But no, there's not really much in terms of dark side for us. And just a little bit here and there, but nothing crazy.
Yeah, it's just normal stuff. I mean, you should have had a motor a long time ago, but you continue to paddle. I mean, those are the biggest things. And Chick-fil-A is a great restaurant, even though you don't think so. I mean, it's just no-brainer stuff like that. So,
yeah, about that. Oh, sorry about that. Laughing really gets my gets that cough going. So yeah, well, I guess the only real place to go from here is to do one last. What's your favorite? You ready?
yeah, you go first, and then I'll go. Unless you think yours is great, then because mine's not that good.
Well, we'll see. We'll see.
It's time for What's Your Favorite? Powered by Nakwa Adventure Gear. Power that fits in the palm of your hand.
What's your favorite cough drop? Do
you want me to? Yeah. Do you? Yeah. Ludens. Is that how you pronounce that?
I'm not sure.
Yeah. So
I've only ever read it.
Luden. Yeah.
Okay.
And I like all of those, whatever flavor. It doesn't matter. They work well.
Mine is Fisherman's Friend. They are super strong menthol cough drops, but yeah, what is your? So here's my real one. That one was just I had my cough drop in my mouth, and I was just, well, I should do that. But so here's my real one. What is your favorite off-brand, like store brand?
Oh, that's easy. Aldi.
Bro.
Yeah. What?
I'm drinking an Aldi ginger ale right
now.
Oh
yeah. Oh, no, that's so we do the majority of our grocery shopping every week at Aldi, and then we go to Walmart for the things that they don't have, because there are some items that they don't have. But like this, and we go Sunday morning before church, so we hit Aldi at 8:30, and like we're on a timer, and we're back to the house by 9:10. We unload the groceries and on our way to church by like 9:40 for the 10 o'clock service. So, yeah, we get most everything at Aldi. And to be honest with you, this is a great example, because for a long time on American cheese, that I would not touch anything except Kraft American cheese because just nothing else tasted that way. But the Aldi brand cheese is the only off-brand cheese that I'll eat. And it is, their off brands are good and the prices are so much better that it's ridiculous. Like the price difference between them and really anybody else. So yeah, Aldi, that was a good one.
I will
You?
say this: Aldi cheese is phenomenal.
Oh yeah, yeah.
There are some things that I'm like, probably not. I might not want to get that at Aldi. Depends on what day it is. Depends on how recently they restocked. But for me, I don't know. It's one of those things where it varies from like item to item. But if
Yeah.
I just had to pick one for everything, I'm probably going Kirkland Signature,
Yeah.
Costco.
Yeah, that would be my number two.
It's
yeah.
Like I said, it depends on what you're getting. Like, I mean, if you're getting cheese, yeah, Aldi is the place to go. If you're getting sodas, I think Aldi's good, and I think Food Lion is up there.
Yeah, Dr. Thunder's on point.
But I mean, if you just need like especially snacks, dude, Kirkland Signature snacks are.
Or if you want to get an off-brand Scotty Cameron putter, they have Kirkland's is the deal. Like Kirkland Signature,
I mean,
that's
clothes.
That putter's legit.
Yeah, clothes. I mean, even like not just like batteries. Like, I mean, sure, they're not going to last as long, but you get 100 of them.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a good one. So mine is. I thought we were going to have the same exact question, so I'm going to go with. And you already knew what my answer to this question was going to be, so you may have already thought about it too. But I'm going to say your best memory from the last 4.5 years of Faith and Fishing podcast, or if you don't want to pick out just one, string some together. But if you had to pick out something, what's like, oh yeah, this is my deal. This is what I'm gonna hang my hat on.
Well, I think obviously I touched on it earlier. The relationships that I built through it are like number one. In terms of like episodes, Russell Dillon just stands out. Kid was 12 years old and just got it. Right? He said, I asked him like, what life advice would you pass on? He said, spend as much time in the outdoors doing the things you love with the people you love.
Yeah.
12-year-old kid. He gets it. I mean, Jimmy Houston has got to be up there, just like the legend of the sport. Listening, and I love the moments where like I'm like, oh gosh, I'm part of this podcast too. I'm not just here listening. I need to actually respond and be a part of it. Getting Randy to say, my name's Randy Howell, and you're listening to the Faith and Fishing podcast.
Yeah.
I like you said, there's way too many to.
Yeah, there's a ton.
But yeah, I got to interview people that I was like, this is like one of my heroes,
Yeah.
So what about you?
That's the same as what I was going to say. Just interviewing people, and I think there's a moment when, especially maybe somebody that's not as well known, would start to talk about their faith story, or you could tell a little bit at the first of it. They're kind of like, I don't know how much of my faith story do I want to tell, and then 20 minutes later, like they are just into it. And it's cool to see that transformation from somebody that's like, okay, I'll go on this podcast, to like, it's okay. And it's cool to talk about your faith story. Like, just to see, even within the hour and a half, people kind of are at ease about talking about their faith story. And I think that's probably what I got. One of the things that'll stand out to me is just that, seeing that switch get flipped, where somebody's like, oh yeah, well, here you go, here's my faith story. Now, there are other people that I could tell that have no problem, that have told their faith story hundreds of times, but then it just stands out when somebody really probably hasn't shared that. And I think those are the ones that are probably the most impactful for the listeners as well. So that would be mine.
I mean, like, to that point, like thinking about like Pete Shandrick.
Yeah.
Like, so I talked to Pete and Chelsea after that, and Chelsea was like, yeah, I was behind him the whole time, just like mouth wide open, like he's actually saying it. He's actually saying it. And then you had people, reaching out to him, letting him know that, hey, your story made a difference in my life.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. Those are some of the moments that like were also really special. And then you had like Tyler Daniels, who came on the show, and like he was a fan of the show, and like talked to me about a few things, and like I was like, hey, you want to come on the show and talk about it? And then after he was on, like a little while later, he was like, hey, we had a few guys that listened to our episode, and like during our tournament trail, we baptized 6 guys. It's like, dude.
Yeah, it's cool.
So one thing is for sure, this podcast, I feel like, has and will make a difference, or has made and will make a difference. There are episodes that I feel like that didn't get to happen, but that's okay, and they will get to happen somewhere else.
That's right.
And I should mention, we were mentioning different podcasts earlier. Another one, if you're interested in like life stories, even if it's not all faith related, is Armando's podcast, Real Life, on the Bass Kayak and Beers podcast network. So go give that one a shout out to. He's one of those that it's like that relationship has meant a lot, and like we were able to build a relationship with him through the podcasts, and then another memory like was being invited to go on other people's podcasts. Like the very first time, I was like, man, I don't deserve to be here. Like, what are you, imposter syndrome, right? Like, why am I here? Like, I don't deserve this. And then like, and then just like going on people's podcasts and having a blast and being able to talk about all kinds of different things. And that was definitely a part of it. And then from a fishing standpoint, I will say my fishing, I am so much of a better angler now than I was when I started this podcast, just from like building those relationships with people who are much better than me, and like asking questions and learning, and having those relationships with people who like I can text them and ask them questions, and or like just all the different, like there's always these little tidbits and stuff that come on the podcast, and it's like, man, I can't believe, like, we did an entire episode with Dan Flowen about grouper fishing, like just like awesome, like awesome awesome information and like stuff that I've been able to apply. And so like I will say I've grown as a person and I've grown as an angler as well. And part of that was having that little stretch where I was able to get on the water a lot. But part of it has definitely been, just the learning from the people that we've been able to have on.
Yep, I agree.
All right. Well, I guess, did you have anything else that you wanted to say to end it on?
Nope. I'll still be putting stuff out on Outdoors to Go YouTube channel, and then Instagram. It's Outdoors to Go, and that's it. I mean, I said this before we actually started recording. You can never tell. We may go 6 months down the road and pop up and do an episode here or there. You may see us pop up on other people's podcasts. So we'll be out and about, and just looking forward to getting some fishing done. And we're only, I don't know, 7 miles apart from where we live, so we're definitely going to hook up and fish some of these CCKF Wildcats. The whole season's Wildcat now. I love it. I'm pumped up.
Pay at the ramp, baby.
Yeah, pay at the ramp, bring cash money. I'm down with it. So I reached out to Mitch after he posted that. I didn't get to listen to it live, but I listened to it the next morning and sent him a message. I was like, yeah, I'm down with it. So that's going to be fun. And then hit some other stuff that's close by. And yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. And thank you again for having me on. And we'll stay in touch and hook up and go catch some big mouth bass.
Most definitely. And if you want to follow me and see if I finally catch that smallmouth bass, the Clumsy Kayak Angler on Instagram is how to follow me. So I doubt I've always been saying it for the longest time, like I might be throwing some stuff on YouTube too, but I'm not at the point right now where I have time to sit down and edit a video. I'm just not. So for now, Instagram at the Clumsy Kayak Angler. So that's where you can follow my adventures and see what ends up happening to me after this. But yeah, let's go ahead and let's pray this one out.
Go ahead.
God, thank you for the opportunity to share you and to share our passion for you and for fishing with so many people, and our passion for sharing other people's stories and getting those stories out there. Thank you for giving us the platform to do that, and giving us the window of time to be able to get so much content out there to share you and so many other things with so many people. As always, we ask that you put on a show in the life of the listener, wherever they are. Meet them and be there with what they need. And thank you for Robert and what he meant to this show and what he brought and everything that he was able to do. Thank you for all of those that helped out with the podcast, whether it was current or past sponsors, whether it was just listeners who had encouraging words along the way, people who were just people in our lives that encouraged us and allowed us to do this, gave us the space and the time to do this. And even if they never even listened to an episode, whatever the case may be, thank you for all of those who helped make this possible. And thank you for putting on a show in 4.5 years of faith in fishing. And thank you for giving us a space where this kind of thing can sit around forever and continue to make a difference in people's lives. God, we love you, and it is in Jesus' name that we pray. Amen.
Amen. And I am going to add on one thing that we both forgot, but then you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I forgot that.
Oh, no.
So I want to thank my wife for allowing me every Wednesday night for a long time to drag all the podcast stuff out and to keep the dogs from tearing the doors down and to allow me to do this because I had so much fun. And I know that, you know, your wife has done the same for you. So big shout out.
Huge shout out.
Yep.
Those two were the ones that I was talking about that probably never listened to an episode, but this would not be possible without them.
Yep.
You know, my wife, whenever we're recording, she's got the baby monitor. She's taking care of both kids and both dogs. And, you know, a lot of times during that time, she was also working. So, I mean, like, hats off to her. She has been the real MVP throughout this entire process. Even though, like, she's probably in there rolling her eyes like, how can he sit there and talk about something as stupid as fishing for this long?
Yeah, same. But big shout out to both of them, and thank you again. I've had a blast.
And thank you, man. And thank you to everyone who has been listening. So that is going to do it for this podcast.
There it is.
Thank you all for listening. Y'all take care and God bless.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the Faith and Fishing Podcast. Please consider supporting those that support us. Jade's Jigs lead-free finesse tackle. Use promo code FNF10 at jadesjigs.com for 10% off. Save your outdoors. Stop losing your gear. Use promo code FNFP15 at SaveYourOutdoors.com for 15% off. Omnia Fishing. Check out Premium, Premium Pro, and their Ambassador Program. Use promo code FNF10 for 10% off at OmniaFishing.com. And if it's your first order, use promo code FNF15 for 15% instead. Mr. B Lure Company. High-quality handmade baits made right here in the U.S. At MrBLureCompany.com. Use promo code Faith and Fishing Pod for 15% off your first purchase. Get outdoors, pedal and paddle. Check them out at the shop in Greensboro, North Carolina, or at ShopGetOutdoors.com for all your paddling and cycling needs. And Nocqua Adventure Gear, lighting, power, and all the connectors at Nocqua.com. Please rate, review, subscribe on whatever app you're listening on. That's going to do it for this episode. Y'all take care and God bless.